All right, so let's dive into something everybody thinks they know, right?
Yeah.
St. Patrick's Day. We've got the green, the parades, maybe one too many pints of Guinness.
Yeah.
But beneath the surface, you know, there's a history like woven with mythology and a fascinating cultural shift.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go way beyond those cliches with this deep dive, and we've got we're working with an article written originally in Hungarian that reveals St. Patrick's Day through like a really unique lens.
Yeah. But what's fascinating about this article is that it really blends history with these mystical interpretations. It suggests there's almost a cosmic energy woven into the fabric of this holiday.
Cosmic energy, huh? I'm intrigued. So we're not just talking about a day of celebration. We're looking at the transformation of Ireland itself.
Yeah.
From like ancient pagan roots to the embrace of Christianity.
Exactly. And those ancient roots are key to understanding why St. Patrick's Day is so much more than just like a religious holiday.
Right.
It's about the merging of two worlds, a delicate dance between old and new beliefs.
Okay, let's start with the man himself, St. Patrick. This article highlights that he wasn't even Irish. He was born Maewyn Sucait in Roman Britain, kidnapped at 14, taken to Ireland as a slave. That's a pretty rough start to life.
Imagine the impact of that experience. A young man ripped from his home, forced into a completely different culture. It wasn't just a change of scenery. It was a complete upheaval of like everything he knew.
Yeah, it certainly adds another layer to those lucky charms, doesn't it? But the article goes on to say that during his captivity, he turned to faith. He eventually escaped and returned to Britain. You would think that would be the end of his Irish adventure.
But this is where things get really interesting. He felt this pull, right? Back to Ireland. Not as a captive, though, but as Patricius, a missionary with a mission to convert the Irish to Christianity. Talk about a personal transformation.
So in 432 AD, Patricius, who we know as St. Patrick, returns to Ireland. But instead of forcing his beliefs, the article suggests he used some pretty clever strategies to introduce Christianity.
Absolutely. He recognized that the Irish were so deeply connected to their pagan beliefs, a system where nature and the cycles of life held immense power.
Right.
He could have tried to just wipe out those beliefs, but instead he chose to kind of weave them into his teachings.
Okay, so how did he bridge that gap between paganism and Christianity? What did that actually look like?
Well, think about the classic story of St. Patrick banishing snakes from Ireland. Now we know Ireland never actually had snakes.
Right.
So what's that really about? The article suggests those snakes actually represent the old ways, the pagan beliefs so deeply rooted in Irish culture.
So banishing the snakes wasn't literal. It was symbolic of Ireland shedding those old beliefs and embracing Christianity. Pretty bold move, using their own imagery, well, not against them, but to guide them.
Exactly. And it wasn't a violent takeover. It was more of a merging and evolution. Instead of wiping the slate clean, he took those existing beliefs and wove them into the fabric of Christianity.
This is where that cosmic energy you mentioned earlier starts to make sense.
Yeah.
Like he was working with these existing energies and channeling them in a new direction. And speaking of symbols, what about the shamrock? I mean, everyone knows it's associated with St. Patrick's Day, but I'm guessing there's more to it?
The shamrock, with its 3 leaves, was such a brilliant teaching tool. He used it to represent the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. A simple, visual way to make this complex theological concept relatable to people already familiar with the power of 3 in their own belief system.
That's fascinating. But wouldn't that also risk, like, oversimplifying a concept as complex as the Holy Trinity? I mean, could that have caused confusion down the line?
That's a valid point, but remember, he was trying to make these ideas accessible to a culture that was just steeped in these different traditions, right? It's likely he focused on the core essence of the Trinity, the concept of 3 distinct but interconnected beings without getting too bogged down in all the theological intricacies.
So meeting them where they were at, so to speak.
Yeah.
Clever. It's really making me rethink the whole luck of the Irish thing.
Yeah.
It's more about a profound cultural shift in Ireland than just simple luck.
Right. And that shift continues to resonate not just in Ireland, but globally. Think about this. The first recorded St. Patrick's Day parade wasn't even in Ireland. It took place in St. Augustine, Florida, back in 1601.
Wait, a St. Patrick's Day parade in Florida before Ireland. How did that even happen?
It's a testament to how St. Patrick's Day evolved beyond just a religious holiday into a celebration of Irish identity and culture, celebrated by people of Irish descent, like all over the world. It speaks to the enduring power of heritage.
Speaking of heritage, let's talk about those leprechauns. They're a big part of the imagery we see today. But they're often portrayed as Like mischievous little tricksters. Is there more to them than meets the eye?
Leprechauns are such fascinating figures in Irish folklore. Sure, there's the mischief, but they're also associated with hidden treasures, magical powers, a deep connection to the land. The article dives a bit deeper and suggests they represent something quite profound: guardians of ancient knowledge and the potential for transformation within each of us.
So there's more to them than just finding pots of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Think of the gold as symbolic. Not just material wealth, but the hidden wisdom, the spiritual riches we all possess. The leprechaun, as guardian of this treasure, challenges us to seek out our own inner gold, you know?
I'm sensing a theme here. Snakes, shamrocks, leprechauns, they all kind of point to transformation and change. It's like St. Patrick himself was a master of transformation, turning his own life around and then leading a whole culture through this major shift.
And that's what's at the heart of St. Patrick's Day. It's not just about a saint. It's about celebrating that power of transformation, both personal and cultural. And it's no coincidence that this all happens in spring, a time of renewal and rebirth in nature.
You know, I've never thought about it that way before. It's like St. Patrick's Day is this reminder that we can all shed our old ways, embrace new beginnings, and maybe even find a little magic along the way. But let's not forget, this transformation wasn't just about symbolism and clever storytelling. St. Patrick had to navigate the very real complexities of integrating these two very different belief systems. I'm curious to explore that aspect a bit further.
Absolutely. The article sheds light on how St. Patrick approached this challenge with remarkable sensitivity, recognizing the importance of honoring existing traditions while introducing new ideas. It's a story of cultural exchange and adaptation that has a lot to teach us even today.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned navigating complexities because the article actually compares St. Patrick's approach to a silk scarf gently draping itself over the existing landscape, adding a new layer of beauty without obscuring what lies beneath.
That's a beautiful analogy. It really captures the essence of his approach, doesn't it? Instead of this harsh imposition, it was more like a delicate weaving together of old and new. Exactly. He didn't try to force a complete break from the past, you know? Instead, he recognized that wisdom and beauty inherent in the old ways and sought to build upon them.
It speaks volumes about his understanding of human nature.
Right.
He knew you couldn't just erase people's deeply held beliefs.
Yeah.
You know, change, especially on a cultural scale, has to be handled with care.
And it also speaks to the adaptability of Christianity itself, right? Its ability to take root in different cultures and adapt to their unique customs and beliefs.
That reminds me that the article also touched upon the fact that St. Patrick's Day falls during Lent. It's a time of reflection and fasting. For many Christians, it seems like an odd time to have a celebration, doesn't it?
Well, think about it this way. Lent is a period of spiritual discipline, right, leading up to Easter. But St. Patrick's Day, falling within that period, offers this moment of respite, a chance to celebrate and rejoice.
So it's like a little burst of joy amidst the seriousness of Lent. A reminder that faith isn't all about just deprivation and sacrifice.
Precisely. And that joy is often expressed through, like, feasting, music, and these community gatherings, elements that have just been woven into the fabric of St. Patrick's Day celebrations over centuries, you know. It's like this pressure valve, you know, a chance to let loose a bit before diving back into the spiritual work of Lent.
That makes a lot of sense. The article even mentioned that the very first St. Patrick's Day was declared a feast day.
Right.
Allowing people to break from the Lenten restrictions.
It was a strategic move, for sure. You know, a way to make that transition to Christianity a bit more palatable.
Right.
A little taste of the joy and celebration that this new faith promised.
You know, this deep dive is really challenging. My preconceived notions about St. Patrick's Day, I'm seeing it as this fascinating blend of ancient traditions, religious adaptation, and cultural pride.
And that's what makes it so enduring, you know? It's a holiday that has evolved over time, absorbing these new meanings and traditions while staying connected to its core themes of transformation, rebirth, and the power of belief. But those themes aren't confined to one culture or one time period, right? They're universal.
Speaking of belief, let's go back to that cosmic energy mentioned earlier. What exactly did the article mean by that in the context of St. Patrick's Day?
Well, remember, this article approaches St. Patrick's Day from this perspective that acknowledges the interconnectedness of all things. You know, it's a concept often found in these mystical traditions.
So are we saying that there's like a deeper spiritual layer to the celebration beyond the historical events and cultural expressions?
Think of it like this. Every symbol, every ritual, every story associated with St. Patrick's Day carries a certain energy, right? A vibration that connects us to something larger than ourselves.
Like those symbols are tapping into a collective unconscious, a shared pool of meaning that resonates across cultures and time.
That's a great way to put it. And the fact that St. Patrick's Day is celebrated globally speaks to that universal appeal. Its ability to touch something deep within the human psyche, something that goes beyond nationality or even religious affiliation.
Okay, I'm with you, but how does this cosmic energy actually manifest in the celebration of St. Patrick's Day? Give me a concrete example.
Take the act of wearing green, for example. It's not just about showing your Irish pride.
Right.
It's about aligning yourself with the energy of growth, renewal, and vitality that color green represents.
So it's like we're literally embodying the spirit of spring through our attire.
Precisely. And that act of embodying, of physically expressing a belief or intention is such a powerful way to connect with that cosmic energy.
It makes me think about those St. Patrick's Day parades. They're not just displays of revelry.
Right.
They're also a form of collective expression, a way for people to come together and celebrate their shared heritage, regardless of their background.
And in that coming together, in that shared experience, something magical happens, We tap into this collective energy, a sense of belonging that transcends our individual differences.
It's like the parade becomes a ritual, a way to connect with something bigger than ourselves, something that speaks to our shared humanity. It's funny, we started this deep dive talking about snakes and shamrocks, and now we're exploring these grand concepts of cosmic energy and collective consciousness.
It's a testament to how deeply interwoven the themes of St. Patrick's Day are,
Right.
From the historical and the cultural all the way to the spiritual and the personal.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion, each layer revealing this deeper and deeper understanding. But there's one layer I'm still curious to explore further. The article mentioned the role of leprechauns as guardians of ancient knowledge. I'd love to unpack that a bit more.
Yes, the leprechaun, with his pot of gold and mischievous grin, is often seen as the symbol of luck and fortune. But according to the article, there's this deeper meaning to this figure, a connection to the wisdom and power of the natural world.
So it's not just about finding material wealth, it's about tapping into something more profound.
Think of the pot of gold as a metaphor for the hidden treasures that lie within each of us. The leprechaun, as guardian of these treasures, challenges us to seek them out, to delve deeper into our own inner landscape and discover that wisdom that lies hidden there.
That's a powerful image. It's like the leprechaun is this trickster figure who uses his mischief to get our attention.
Right.
To make us stop and question our assumptions.
Yeah.
To look beyond the surface and search for that deeper meaning behind things.
Exactly. And that's a message that resonates throughout the story of St. Patrick's Day.
Right.
It's a holiday that invites us to look beyond the surface, to explore the hidden meanings and connections, and to embrace the transformative power of change and renewal.
I'm starting to see St. Patrick's Day in a whole new light. It's less about the cliches and more about the underlying themes of transformation, renewal, and the power of belief. But let's not forget about the historical context. The Christianization of Ireland was a complex process, and I'm sure St. Patrick faced some resistance along the way.
Yeah.
The article hinted at some of those challenges, didn't it?
Absolutely. While the article focuses primarily on the symbolic and spiritual aspects of St. Patrick's Day, it does acknowledge that the transition to Christianity wasn't always smooth sailing. There were clashes of cultures, power struggles, and moments of conflict. But the article argues that St. Patrick's approach, which was rooted in respect and adaptation, ultimately paved the way for a more harmonious integration of the old and the new.
It's fascinating how this one holiday can encapsulate so many different layers of meaning, from the historical and the political to the cultural and the spiritual. But perhaps the most compelling aspect is this idea of personal transformation. It seems to be at the very heart of the St. Patrick's Day story.
And it's a theme that resonates so deeply with people from all walks of life. We all go through periods of transformation, of shedding those old ways and embracing new beginnings. And St. Patrick's Day, with its vibrant symbolism and rich history, offers us this powerful reminder of our own capacity for change and growth.
Right.
But it also challenges us to think about the kind of transformation we want to see in the world around us.
That's a great point. It's not just about individual transformation, it's about collective transformation as well. About finding ways to build bridges between different cultures and belief systems,
Right.
to create a world where everyone feels the sense of belonging and connection.
And perhaps that's the most enduring legacy of St. Patrick's Day. It's a celebration that reminds us of our shared humanity, our capacity for growth and change, and our responsibility to create a more just and compassionate world for all.
Wow. It's amazing how we started with green beer and leprechauns and ended up talking about cultural exchange and collective transformation.
Yeah.
These deep dives always take us on the most unexpected journeys.
Yeah, it's the beauty of really digging deep into a topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
This article, though focused on St. Patrick's Day, manages to touch on these really universal themes that just reach far beyond a single holiday.
It's given us a lot to ponder.
Yeah.
What stands out to you as the most significant takeaway from all this?
I think for me, it's the realization that transformation isn't always about those huge, dramatic upheavals,
Right.
It can be subtle, a weaving together of the old and the new, a gradual awakening to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
Yeah, that's beautifully put, and so relevant to St. Patrick himself. He didn't just reject the existing beliefs of the Irish people, but found a way to incorporate them into this, new framework.
Precisely. And that willingness to adapt and evolve, that's ultimately what allowed Christianity to flourish in Ireland, right? It wasn't about conquest. It was about finding common ground, building bridges.
Mm-hmm. And that brings us back to that idea of unity. Even though St. Patrick's Day is rooted in this specific religious tradition, it's become a celebration that transcends those boundaries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a day for people of all backgrounds to come together and celebrate their shared humanity.
And in a world that often feels increasingly divided, that message is more powerful than ever, right? It reminds us that despite our differences, we're all connected. We're all part of something bigger than ourselves.
This deep dive has really shifted my perspective on St. Patrick's Day. It's not just about the parades and the green beer. It's a celebration of transformation, cultural exchange, and the enduring power of the human spirit to connect and find unity.
And as the article suggests, maybe we can all take a moment to reflect on our own personal journeys of transformation. What are we leaving behind? What new growth are we embracing? How are we connecting with the world around us?
Those are great questions to consider. So as you're putting on your green and maybe enjoying a celebratory drink this St. Patrick's Day, remember, it's about more than just a party. It's a time to reflect on the power of transformation, both within ourselves and in the world around us.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe the look of the Irish will be with you as you embark on your own path of transformation.
Until next time, keep diving deep.